Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to No Static Radio, where we don't bring the static, but we sure enough bring the noise. You are now listening to The Right Side. I am your host, Jeff Doggett, coming to you on the greatest station in the nation, from the greatest location in the nation. Shout out to everybody listening to us as far north as Kennebunkport, Maine, as far south as Key West, Florida, as far east as Long Island, New York, and as far west as Long Beach, California, and all the points in between. For those of you that are listening to us around the world, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever greeting best suits the time zone that you are in. There are several things that you can do to stop the spread of respiratory diseases like COVID-19. Number one, wash your hands with warm soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Now, if you don't know what 20 seconds are, just sing happy birthday to yourself, and when you've completed the song, you've completed 20 seconds. Number two, wipe down frequently touched objects and items with some type of sanitizer. And also, you might want to mix some hand sanitizer inside your car so that when you go to the gas station and pump your gas, you can then sanitize your hands afterwards, as you do not know who touched that pump prior to you being there. Number three, stay at home when you are sick and stay away from people who are sick. Yes, that job will go on. I know that you don't think it will, but that job will go on without you being there. Number four, when you are in an enclosed area like a grocery store or shopping mall or a food court or a concert arena, a sports arena, a church, whatever the case may be, please wear your mask and please try to continue to social distance. This is not over, folks. As a matter of fact, it is more from a pandemic to an endemic, meaning it's going to be around with us for quite some time. And this was brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station, No Static Radio, where we don't bring the static, but we sure enough bring the noise, powered by Google and sponsored by Lamont Avenue Wines. If you are in the Cleveland area on the first or third Saturday of each month, I've got some outstanding news for you. At 6812 Woodland Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., they are giving away free groceries. That's right, free, as in you don't have to pay anything. Now, not only are they free, but you do not have to show proof of residence. You do not have to show proof of income. The only thing that you have to show is up, and that you show up, and you will get a free bag of groceries, no questions asked. Now, it doesn't stop there, though. Not in addition to the groceries, you receive free clothing. Listen, for adults and children. So listen, you get free clothing for yourself and free clothing for any children that are with you. And to top it all off, after you get your free bag of groceries, after you get your free clothing for you and your children, if you are there from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., you get a free hot lunch, a home-cooked hot lunch. So you can't beat that, folks, at all. You get free groceries, free clothing, and a hot lunch, home-cooked. And where is this, you say? 6812 Woodland Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio. And when is it, you ask? It is the first and third Saturday of each month from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We want to shout out the Greater Cleveland Food Bank and Major Care Ministries, as well as the Williams Temple Church of God in Christ, who houses this the first and third Saturday of each month. So please take advantage of this wonderful and very philanthropic activity that's going on in the city of Cleveland, Ohio. Those of you that are new to this program, this is what we do. We talk sports, we talk politics, we talk the issues of the day. I throw out some topics on the table. I give my take on those topics. And then we invite you to call in with your takes at 216-939-5087, 216-939-5087. We are honored in our first hour today to have in studio with us Hiram Boyd, aficionado on all things Cleveland sports, but especially on the Cleveland Cavaliers. And as you who follow know, that the NBA season kicked off earlier this week. And so what we're going to do in our first hour of the program today is that we're going to do a preview of the NBA season. We're going to focus on the league as a whole, but we're going to also it's been a very close scrutiny to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So Hiram is no stranger. He was here last year, and we welcome him back again to the right side. So Hiram, right off the bat, what is your outlook on the NBA this season? How do you see things?
Oh, that's a big question. It's gonna be an exciting season. It's a lot of good teams out there. Um, it's not as many I can't think of any super really bad teams out there that that's gonna win 10 to 12 games or anything like that. But it's a lot of good teams. I would say about 10 to 12 very good to elite teams. Then you got about the same number of good to very good teams. Then you got the teams that are somewhat rebuilding, but if you sleep on them that particular game, you're going to get beat.
Right, and even though it's a small sample size, I will say this, that the 2 games I've seen Paulo Vancaro play for Orlando, he looks, and I'm not ready to award him the Rookie of the Year yet, although I will make my prediction on who I think is going to be the Rookie of the Year this year later on in this hour. But he's looked fantastic. He's looked NBA ready, albeit, as I said, in a very small sample size. But he's something to watch. So let's look at each conference. Let's start with the Eastern Conference first. Now, the East, and not trying to be cute here, but the East is going to be a beast this year. When you look at this conference from top to bottom, you could very well make the argument that the East has now surpassed the West as the best conference in the league this year.
Totally agree.
Because you got Milwaukee, you got Boston, you got Philadelphia, Toronto, Cleveland, Atlanta, Miami. I mean, you can just go on and on. I think even the Wizards will be improved. Chicago.
I agree.
The Knicks. I mean, each from top to bottom. So this is going to be a dogfight each night in the East. And out West, while it may not be as deep as the East is, you still have some great teams out there as well. You got, of course, the defending world champions. Then you've got the Memphis Grizzlies, who I don't know, Hiram, but you'd like to hear your take on this. I think had Ja Morant not got injured in that series last year at Golden State, I think they would have beat Golden State last year.
I believe they lost a big power forward too in that series.
Right,
too.
they did.
Yeah. It would have been. I think it would have went 7. I can't say they would have won. I think it would have won. It would have gone 7.
Yeah, as it is, they won 6. So
yes.
You got them. Of course, you got Denver. You got the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard back this year, and Dallas with Luka. Although that was a big loss, losing Jalen Brunson from their team to the Knicks. So, like I said, it's going to be very interesting and very exciting this year. The Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't mean to leave them out.
No.
Phoenix as
Phoenix
well.
is going to be there.
And then you have the woebegone, forlorn Los Angeles Lakers, who I dubbed last year the AARP Lakers because of the age of their team.
The problem with the Lakers is that, in my opinion, that Russell Westbrook trade is killing them.
Yeah.
It is absolutely killing them from a financial point of view and from a production point of view. I don't use the word fit often. I mean, you have to use it in the NBA, but he does not fit that team. They need. I watched the game yesterday, and they need outside shooting.
In the worst way. Well, they needed that last year too.
Exactly. That Russell Westbrook trade is absolutely it's like a big albatross around your neck.
And you wonder, GM Rob Pelinka, why he constructed the type of team that he has. I mean, you and I know from watching LeBron here the type of players that he needs to surround him. You need shooters on the perimeter so that when he penetrates, he'll have shooters that he can kick to, which would open his game up. And, even last year, I mean, if you look at that roster last year they had, it was ill-fitted for him. And, of course, surprise to no one, Anthony Davis went down with an injury. as he always does. And, and this is not knocking him. I'm sure he's not getting injured on purpose, but it's just that's been the story of his career, especially since he's been in LA, but even since he's been in the league. And so this is why I think there's going to be another playoff-less season out in La La Land.
Let me two things real quick about that. I understood why Rob Pelinka made that trade when he made it.
For Westbrook?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to take some of the ball handling off of LeBron. He's getting up. He's what, 30? He was 36, 37.
Yeah, he's 37, 38 this December, yes.
He wanted to take some of that. When he sat down, I need some more ball handling. I understood that. And, playmaking and stuff like that. Let's just hypothetically say it. They traded Russell Westbrook for Kyrie Irving. Just imagine that. That would give them a whole, because their role players are not bad role players if you leave them as role players. The problem is that number 3 guy, if you traded Russell Westbrook for a 24, 25 point consistent, just do everything guy like Kyrie Irving, that team would be, it would be pretty legit.
Well, of course, that was rumored during the
right.
Summer, but that would have really been interesting to send Russ to Brooklyn with KD again.
Right.
We know how much they love one another.
Right.
Tongue firmly placed in cheek. We're going to get to the Brooklyn saga in this hour or two. I have some thoughts on them, and I'm sure you do too.
Absolutely.
You're listening to The Right Side on No Static Radio. Our call-in number is 216-939-5087. 216-939-5087. We have in studio with us Hiram Boyd. We're talking NBA basketball here in this hour. So let's break down the East. And we're going to look at the top 10 teams. I'll tell you who I think the top 10 break down. We can talk about that, and then we can see if we agree on those top 10, and if not, which teams we disagree on and where we think they're going to fall. I got Milwaukee number 1 in the East. I think Milwaukee would have come out of the East last year had not Chris Middleton gone down in the very first round of the playoffs last year. As it was, they extended the then Eastern Conference champions Celtics to a 7th game without that. And I just think with Giannis, who I believe right now is the best player in the league, Drew Holiday, Middleton, Connaughton, Brook Lopez, that they have. And they picked up someone in the offseason who it just escaped my mind, who they got that he's not ready yet. He's injured, but it's
Joe Ingles.
Ingles, that's right, from Utah. It was another shooter. So now what you have with Milwaukee is similar to what, although the personnel are not as good as what you had when LeBron was in Cleveland on their first title run, because you've got Giannis, who basically is unguardable, and he can surround the floor with shooters when Ingles comes back, with Connaughton, with Chris Middleton, etc. And they're very stout on the defensive end of the floor too. They're one of the better top defensive teams in the league as well. And some will say that they overcome the coaching of Mike Budenholzer. I'm not that down on him. I think he's a good coach. I think in Atlanta he was just running into LeBron and the Cavs every year, and no one in the East was beating him. So who do you see? Who's your top seed in the East?
I can go with Milwaukee, however, for right now. However, I am worried about the age of that team. That team has been together a while, and they haven't really made any changes in introducing any young players. And they do have some young talent on that team. The problem is you got a head coach who is notorious, infamous for his stubbornness.
True.
And he's not introducing any of these young players to take some of that pressure off of those older balls. They're the oldest team in the NBA. So if you want to go from the standpoint of, they have the least amount of questions, they're the most proven, I'll tend to agree. By mid to late year, I might change my opinion because I think there's some teams who aren't as proven, who are as talented, younger, and can beat the Bucks. To be frank, but I do agree with you. They would have beaten Boston last year if Middleton didn't get down.
It's going to be interesting to see too if they do anything at the trade deadline to add another piece onto that team.
They don't have any assets.
Well, yeah, that's true, and they're cap strapped too.
Right.
So
well, the rumor was they wanted to trade for old buddy Jordan Clarkson, and Utah would have had to take George Hill, and Utah said no, no, no,
no, well, George,
no, it's done.
no pun intended, is over the hill. So I can't blame them on that. Second seed or second team I have in the East, second place are the Celtics. You know what they added Malcolm Brogdon. The problem, of course, with Malcolm Brogdon throughout his career is that he has the same problem as Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving have, and that is trying to stay healthy. But if he can stay healthy, that's something that they desperately needed. They needed another ball handler, as the Warriors exposed that in the finals last year. So he brings them that now. Presently, as we speak now, he's coming off the bench. They're still starting Keith Smart. I mean, excuse me, not Keith Smart. Keith Smart. They're still starting Smart at the point guard this year. But I don't know, Hiram. I think somewhat into the season that Brogdon is going to move in to the starting lineup. And I think Marcus Smart is better suited now with this team to come off the bench with that second unit to play the defense he does, to knock down the occasional three that he hits, and then, be on the floor late in the game. Possibly you can even go with Brogdon and Smart at the same time on the floor. They are also hoping, of course, for development of Grant Williams. They did also add Dino Gallinari and Robert Williams. They got that trade last year from San Antonio, which really helped them. The roster that we saw with them last year with Robert Williams was there already, but Derek White. So I think the Celtics are deep. I just don't think, and we don't know how much of an effect the whole Ime Udoka travesty is going to affect that team as well. So I got them the second seed in the East.
I have them quite a bit lower.
Okay.
I think the Udoka thing is going to hurt them big time. I think a rookie head coach who's this young and it's just a big question mark. I also think losing Gallinari for the whole year is going to hurt them.
Because they could use his shooting.
Exactly. And I think the Brogdon thing will work itself out. I think they have some major question marks. They lost. It was a terrible offseason for them. They lost 2 or 3 players. I mean,
but the guys they lost, I mean, they weren't really core guys because you still got Jaylen Brown, you still got Tatum. You still, as I said, Derek White, Grant Williams, Robert Williams. You added Brogdon. So they lost Tice and a few other guys that were at the end of their bench, but they weren't really rotational players anyway.
Do they have? I need to look. Do they have those players that I like their first 8 or 9. I like that. But as you know, you're going to need 10 through 13 at some point in time during the year. And that's a big, steep drop off after that.
That's true, but then when you look at the playoffs, though, most teams they go maybe 9 deep at the most.
I agree.
So,
but getting there without putting a lot of wear and tear on your main 9 is going to be the key. It's a long 6-month season.
True.
And I got some teams that are ahead of them. I take the team that. Well, I'll let you get to it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Who are you going to say?
I'll
tell you where I have them at.
The most talented team that you haven't mentioned is the Nets. They're the most talented.
Yeah, they are.
But if they didn't if this team didn't sign PJ Tucker and got a bit more shooting, I can make a strong case for Philly being up there. Because James Harden is looking like James Harden again. But why PJ Tucker with that team? You didn't need that. You needed more shooting, not another guy who can just another guy. You could have put Matisse Thybulle in there to be a defensive guy or something. You didn't need to spend that money on PJ Tucker.
Well, I think they added Tucker and also Montrezl Harrell because they wanted to add some toughness to them, to their team. Yeah, him too. But I have Brooklyn third, but I got big question marks Brooklyn because Brooklyn can either be a super team or they can be a super soap opera. Yeah. And here's my question. I'd like to hear your take on this. When, not if, because we know that during the season, crisis happens. So when they're in a crisis situation, who do they turn to for leadership? Are you going to turn to Kyrie Irving, who's been a guy who's been checked out and who's gone AWOL on you? You're going to turn to Kevin. You're going to turn to KD, which that would be the natural inclination to do, but really, can you call this guy a leader? This was a guy who tried to get his coach fired in the offseason, wanted the coach and GM gone, and said he would come back if that would happen. And, of course, none of that happened. So just makes you wonder what that locker room is and what's going on there behind the scenes.
I agree with you. And, no, you can't. The guy who's actually a leader on that team, and he was a leader in Utah, is the guy they picked up from Utah, the small forward. But he is known to be your best player doesn't necessarily have to be a leader of the team. But Kyrie and Kevin Durant are not leaders of a team.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Kyrie Irving is a space cadet. Oh, tremendous ball player. But KD is a Hall of Fame type player. But no, you can't call those guys leaders of a team. And when they put that team together, they needed to think about that. I mean, you can't just put talented ball players with each other and think that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's the Cleveland Browns. We'll get to that.
Yeah, but it's
How do you see Ben Simmons fitting in?
Good ball. I like his fit on that team because he doesn't need to score to be effective. He needs the ball to be effective, but he's okay without the ball too. His defense, his passing, his all that fits very well. The problem is, as you mentioned, when things don't go right, who do they turn to?
Well, and the other thing too with that team is, and I know LeBron and the Lakers would love to have Seth Curry and Patty Mills on that team out there because that would be exactly what they need. And also former Cavalier Joe Harris. They would. So you got shooters. You got.
Excuse me, Royce O'Neal.
That's who it is.
He's considered a leader. I mean, if I don't subscribe to your best player has to be the leader of the team. But he is a guy that is a high character guy.
Yeah, he is. But, you would look at this team, you would think that if they could keep it together, if they don't unravel at the seams, that's potentially a championship team. If that team plays together and Kyrie doesn't do Kyrie things and Kevin and KD doesn't start sulking because his feelings are hurt, or somebody said something wrong to him on Twitter and now he's sulking. If you look at it, they're almost a perfect fit. You got Kyrie and KD as the two superstars. You got Ben Simmons, who can be the primary ball handler, assist guy, set up Kyrie and KD. He's a great defender. He's multiple defensive teams on the all defensive team multiple times in his career. Then if you want to collapse on Kyrie and KD, you've got shooters on the perimeter, as I said, in Seth Curry, and Joe Harris, and in Patty Mills. So you look at that team, and that's why I say they're potential either super team or they can be a potential bust because of all the personalities that they have.
Totally agree with you.
So that's the team to watch. So you have them 2, and I have them 3. So we're pretty close on that one there. Number 4, I had the team you just mentioned, and that's the Philadelphia 76ers with Cavs killer Tyrese Maxey, of course, perennial MVP candidate Joel Embiid. They added, as you said, P.J. Tucker and Montrezl Harrell to that team to at least give them some more toughness. You already mentioned Thibault. So that is a team to watch as well. My only problem with them is this, is Hiram, and let's look to your take on this, is that regular season James Harden and playoff James Harden. And is James Harden going to revert to Houston James Harden come playoff time, where it's dribble, 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 shot clock down to 4 or 5 seconds on the shot clock, and then take a step back 3 while everybody stands around and watches? That will not win you. That is not going to win you an NBA title. That's not even going to get you out of the East. So, how do you see this team?
That's a very legit point. And what I would do if I were Doc Edwards, I would try to give him more rest during the season. I would. He's getting up there in age. I think he's like 30, 31 now. It's time to start getting him and start delegating more to Tyrese Maxey. My biggest problem with that team, outside of yours, to go along with yours, they don't have enough outside shooting.
No, they don't.
I mean, why? I'm trying. Why? PJ, get me a shooter, man. You lost Curry. You get me not PJ Tucker. If you had gotten me somebody like, I'm just throwing a name, Joe Harris or somebody
or
like,
even Ingles.
or Ingles, or somebody who can just shoot and just fill it up if you try to collapse. Not doggone PJ Tucker. You don't need that.
Well, I guess, he's going to stand in the corner. He can hit the corner 3.
But I need more.
I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying. So and you're listening to the right side on No Static Radio. We don't bring the static, but we sure enough bring the noise. We're talking NBA basketball with our in-studio guest, Hiram Boyd. Give us a call, 216-939-5087, 216-939-5087. I had to do a coin flip on these next 2 teams, 5 and 6, because I think they're very similar and very close to one another. I have the Atlanta Hawks as the number 5 team in the East, with the addition of Devontae Murray, of course, Trae Young, John Collins already there, DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella, team that 2 years ago went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Last year got out of the play-in round, but then lost in 5 games to the Miami Heat. There were some questions as to whether Murray and Young could mesh together, but so far, again, small sample size, including the preseason, but they seem to be able to play with one another and know when one is off the ball and when one is on the ball. So that seems to, at least in the early season, small sample size, seems to have worked itself out. Always did like DeAndre Hunter as a defender. He can also shoot the ball. John Collins, we've heard so much about him over these years. I've still yet to see him blossom into the star that everyone says he's going to be. He's a good player, but I think he has not lived up to some of the hype that he's got. And then Clint Capella is your rim protector there. So how do you see the Hawks this year?
I agree with you, but what I find interesting is you got the Hawks ahead of the Heat. I find that interesting. But looking at the Hawks, I agree with you. I have them ahead of the Cavs too. Wacho Yeka Kongwu, and they got a good team, a good to very good team. Bogdanovich, they got some good role players. They got Trey. They got DeJounte. I'm not as I like DeJounte. I'm not as big on him as some people are. He doesn't bring enough consistent offense for me. He just doesn't. He's a good defender in terms of steals and stuff like that. I'm just not as big of a fan of his as some people are. I think, like I said, he's a good ball player. I might be a little higher on Collins than you are, but overall, I got them ahead of the Cavs too.
Which brings me to the number 6, which is the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm going to address your Miami question in just a moment. So the 6th seed is a team that you and I know a lot about. That is our team here in this town. Of course, that's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Of course, their big addition this offseason was 3-time All-Star guard Donovan Mitchell. And I know you have some strong opinions on him, and I'm going to let you get to those in just a second. But you look at this team that last year, right before the All-Star break, was 35-21 and was a game and a half out of first in the Eastern Conference. And then, of course, they suffered a rash of injuries. Ricky Rubio went down for the season. Jared Allen got injured. Then, of course, Evan Mobley went down. Darius Garland was in and out of the lineup, and they didn't play that well down the stretch, more so, in my opinion, to injuries and all. They had lost Colin Sexton at the beginning of the season. And so that was their downfall. I think had that team stayed healthy last year, they wouldn't have been in the play-in tournament. They would have been one of the top 6 seeds in the East. Now, I like the Mitchell addition. Brings to them a bona fide scorer, a 3-time All-Star, a closer that can take over a game late in the game in the fourth quarter, has closed games in the playoffs. And granted, we know Utah didn't win any championships or anything, but they didn't. Well, no, I can't say that. They did lose to a team that they shouldn't have lost to when they lost to the Clippers that year when Kawhi Leonard was already injured. But so I like the addition. Now, the key to them as it is with any team, is health. Darius Garland is already out, although that doesn't look to be an extended injury. That was a freak injury that he suffered in Game 1 against Toronto the other night. But I like Bickerstaff. I like the fact that Rubio is going to be back in December. Karis LeVert has a full training camp with them, and so hopefully we will see the full advantage that they can garner with him having a full training camp, not coming at the trade deadline. The one thing they will be able to do is they'll be able to score when you look at Garland, Mitchell, LeVert, even Mobley. Then, when Rubio comes back, Rubio, Kevin Love off the bench. I think the most improved player will be Dean Wade. We have to see what Isaac Okoro has done during the offseason as he worked on his offensive game. So that's why I have them 6th in the East. What say you about the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Well, let's first start with I do think they have a lot of talent and they're deep, and I agree with you, they'll be able to score, and I think they'll be able to defend. I do have some questions about J.B. Bickerstaff. His rotations the last 2 years down the stretch have been and I've said this on Twitter many times, I've never seen a head coach that has been worse at knowing how to use a bench. He panicked. Remember, he would say Chetty isn't playing, he's out of the rotation, then the same game he'd be back in, and he can't keep doing that. And he did. And at the end of the season, when they lost that play-in game, I listened to virtually every Cavs podcast I could possibly get my hands on, and they ripped J.B. Bickerstaff from here to there all the way through, and rightfully so.
Well, I agree with you about the rotation, especially in that Atlanta game. I mean, there was time after. I can see it right now in front of me as though it was yesterday. Time after time, they had Lauri Markkanen out there in pick and rolls against Trae Young. We need to make an adjustment here. You can't continue to do the same thing because Trae Young, bless Lauri Markkanen, bless his heart, he could not keep up with him. And Trae Young just killed them, especially in the fourth quarter of that game.
I agree. Let me say this. Donovan Mitchell is a very good ball player, and nobody's saying otherwise. Is he worth what the Cavs gave up for him? I would say no way. No way. Um, I think he is a legit two on a championship team. Maybe at a 1.5, something like that. Very good ball player. I just there's some overratedness and some plateau. He has plateaued in my opinion. And I watched a lot of Utah over the past couple of years because you always get that late night game, and with your NBA package, And I watched a lot of Utah. That's probably the team. Them and Denver were the two teams I probably watched the most. He is a very good ball player. I just think in that whole situation, and let me just say it like this too, and I think Darius Garland is a very good ball player. I compared him to a combination of both Steph and CP3. Not the all-around passer that CP3 is, but a poor man's version, and a poor man's version of Steph Curry doesn't have the volume or the range on the three-point shot of Steph.
Very few people do.
Nobody has, but a poor man's version of that. That being said, I think he's a 3 on the championship team, and I think the Cavaliers erred on giving him A, that contract, and B, overrating his impact on this team.
Well, I think that when they're ready to make the next step, because I look at it this year, you avoid the play-in.
Mm-hmm.
You get a playoff series. You need to win one playoff series. I think that when they're ready to take the, quote, next step, unquote, that neither Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell are going to be the best player on this team. I think that for them to take the step to the next level, the best player on this team has got to become Evan Mobley. He's got to, I'm not saying that he's got to be as good as Giannis because, Giannis's don't come along every day. But he has to be darn near at that level of where Giannis is right now. And his development, he can get to be that. The way I see it is that starting next year, that this team is revolving around Evan Mobley, that he has to be the best player on this team for them to seriously challenge in the Eastern Conference in order to be an NBA Finals team. And to your point, if he does do that, then yes, then Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell both can slide in to their roles of 2 and 3. But Evan Mobley has to be the best player on this team in order for them to be a championship team. They can be a playoff team. They can even win a couple of series. But if they really want to go to the level that they are building towards, then it's on Evan Mobley, and I can see him getting to that level.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Even the Cavaliers coaching staff is saying that. But my problem is you gave up all those assets to get Donovan Mitchell. And you gave up Colin Sexton, who is, if he isn't Donovan Mitchell, is doggone close to it. And in my opinion, if he didn't get injured last year, the way he was trending, he would have surpassed Donovan Mitchell. Colin Sexton is a very good ball player. And the level of disrespect by the fans, the organization, the podcasters was astounding to me. And the level of lies that they were willing to tell on this ball player, he wasn't a winning player. He was too short. We want to make this Darius Garland's team. It's about 10 different lies that they told about this guy just to try to make him take a reduced role. And it was offensive to me, and I'm pretty sure it was offensive to him. And because it turned out to be a lie, because you traded for a guy who gave you everything that you said you did not want in Colin Sexton.
So why do you think Colin Sexton around the league, you just talked about how he was viewed here in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think Colin Sexton around the league is not viewed in a lot of high regard?
Because I think, and some of the national writers have said this, and I think it's a combination of things. The Cavaliers were a losing team, and you have that person. They did this with Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and a lot of other players off the top of my head. Of you're just a scorer on a bad team, and yeah, I think it goes back to what was the player in Golden State, Monte
Ellis.
Monte Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
Who they remember he was scoring all those points, and when he
Yep.
got on the good team,
Yep.
they got burned by that, and he never produced because he couldn't play on the good team. So from that point on, they said, well, Devin Booker, Bradley, but you're just a scorer on a good team, so forth and so on. Therefore, you should be a sixth man, and so forth and stuff like that. I mean, did you say that about Kyrie when the Cavs were winning, 10, 12 games his first 2 or 3 years of this? I mean, I can go on and on. But the thing that stood out about Colin Sexton was he was producing under a lot of bad circumstances. I mean, and doing it efficiently. That's what tells me that he's not just a scorer on a bad team. When you can produce under those circumstances that efficiently, that tells that's not average and ordinary. And then what tells me is if you look at his peers like Jamal Murray, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Welcome to the Right Side, caller. State your name and where you're calling from. We're talking NBA basketball here today.
George Wilson out of Euclid.
Hey, George. Welcome to the Right Side. What's on your mind today?
I love this conversation about Colin Sexton. I agree a lot with what's being said, but when I hear stuff like producing, Colin Sexton is a sixth man. He's good, but he doesn't make the players around him better.
Nope, he don't. I agree.
I said this, Jeff, and we talked about this. We would never know how good Garland is with Colin Sexton ball in his hand. Garland makes people better. Colin Sexton is a one-trick pony. I like him, but we in Cleveland, we seem to elevate players that's here other than when we look at other players in the NBA, we act like they're the same. No, Colin Sexton is not as good as other players. You can't compare him.
That's not true. That's not true. It's not. It's simply not true.
What you're saying. I'm gonna let you finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Do I think he's going to go to Utah and do well? I really do. You know why? Because he reminds me of a player that he's backing up. The kid we had before.
Talking about Jordan Clarkson.
He's a dark-skinned Jordan Clarkson.
No, that's not true.
And I'm gonna say this one play. I like Colin Sexton, but one of his weakest areas in basketball, he has no self-awareness. I'm gonna give you one example. 2 years last year or early in the season, the young kid Stevenson. It was a close game, and Stevenson he got the ball. Now Stevenson, I think he's a second or first round. Player. Stevenson gets the ball. It's a close game, and instead of Stevenson passing it, he takes it down the lane and dunks the basketball. We win the game.
Oh, you're talking about Lamar Stevens. Yes. Okay, you're talking about Lamar Stevens. Okay.
Yeah, Lamar Stevens, yes. Colin Sexton, you're the leader of the team of a young team. You're supposed to be the first player to go tell him, great job. Colin Sexton, if you watch that play, it's like he had an attitude. He has no self-awareness about basketball for the NBA. I'm sorry, he's good, but he doesn't make players around him better.
That's not true.
That's just my opinion.
That's your opinion, and it's not accurate if you really think about it and if you look at the stats and go for it, so forth and so on. No, he's not a great passer, but he's not a bad passer too. He's in the same mode as a passer as Kyrie Irving. which is about 5.5 assists per game, and they're score first guards, and they give you good to solid passing. Not everybody is as good as Garland as a passer, and Garland isn't good in a lot of areas too. Let's not forget that. I mean, he was a major problem when they lost it in that play-in game, going 9 out of 27, going against a backup point guard too. Let's not forget about that. His ceiling as a playmaker is very good, but he has no drive in his game. He can't get past good defenders, and he's a one-trick pony as a shooter. And he never goes to the front. No, I'm talking about Darius Garland. You talking about no? We gonna get to Colin Sexton because we need to.
You said Garland's a one-trick.
Yeah, he's all he does is shoot. I mean, you ever see him go to the free throw line? You ever see him go to the hole? I don't.
What?
No, I mean he needs 2 and 3 picks to get to the line. I mean into the lane. Let's not go there now. I mean the problem with Colin Sexton was you had a front office that didn't respect his game. I mean, and there was some talk that some aspect of the team, and I do know this for a fact, that some people didn't want him in the beginning. Some people in the front office higher on him than the decision makers. Put it to you like that. And it's been reports out there from national writers that have said the same thing that I knew about two or 3 years ago. The problem is that they were willing to tell lies in order to try to get him to take a lesser role because they wanted him to be a sixth man. But he doesn't see himself as a sixth man. He sees himself as in the mode of a Kyrie Irving, a 25 to 27 point guy who can give you 5 to 6 assists. And I see the same thing. I mean, we just happen to disagree. I mean, like I said, he's not a great passer. His defense had improved a lot before his injury. And they wanted to say, well, he didn't win. Well, was the team trying to win when he was scoring all those points and improving? And then as soon as they get better players, they want to reduce his role. That doesn't work. And if you compare him to Jamal Murray, you compare him to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you compare him to Donovan Mitchell at the same stage, Bradley Beal, I go hard all the way through. He compares favorably to all of them. I've done the research, and you should do the same thing. He compares favorably to all of them.
I love what you just said. Mm-hmm. You said you've done the research. I love that. I love somebody that does research. Mm-hmm. But you can't compare somebody if they're not winning. The people you named, Jamal Murray and Denver, they were winning.
Yeah, but the Cavaliers were. Was he supposed to not produce because the team was tanking? Was he supposed to just say, "Oh, the hell with it. I'm just gonna suck until the team is ready to be good"? That wasn't his problem. He needed to produce while the team was sucking, so he can be a core player, and get his money like he intended to do. But they didn't do that.
He wasn't winning.
But the team, is it his problem that the team was tanking? I'm just asking you a question.
Yes.
Why?
I'm going to tell you this. Because in the NBA, the guard-dominant ball, when you are guard and have the ball in your hand, you are the one that controls the game. Okay, I'm not going to listen. First of all, it's disrespectful. I don't care for this player. I love him when he was here. But you can't put Colin Sexton in the same man as Kyrie Irving.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And look at the stat. Look at the stat. Look at the stat. Look at the stats, and then you holler at me. I've already done I could even recite them for you if you want. I mean, look at the stats, and you know what? In their third year, it was a huge difference. And Colin Sexton had a way better third year than Kyrie Irving. I'm just saying, look, this is all I'm gonna say. If a team is trying to lose, and the Cavs were trying to lose, you can't blame an individual player for being good and say, well, he didn't win. The problem is that they didn't respect his game enough, and they had some other personal issues with him, and they elevated other guys. And it turned out to be a lie in which they were saying, because everything that they say they did not want, everything, they got in Donovan Mitchell. He's ball dominant. He shoots more. He's going to overshadow Garland. He's a better player than Garland, and he's the same size. I can go on and on and on, and he's less efficient. So the problem is that they told a lot of lies on this ball player to try to get him to take a lesser role.
Well, to be fair, too, let me just say this. To be fair, in Colin Sexton's first couple of years here, they didn't really have that much talent on the team either. I mean, you look at the roster. This was before. This was before Evan Mobley. This was before Jared Allen got here. I mean, you were running out some less than quality NBA players. I would even argue, to some extent, you had some G League level type guys out there with him. So, that to expect him to win with that roster, I don't know, George might be stretching it some because that just wasn't a winning roster that they had.
And I agree with everything. You guys are saying a lot. I can agree with that. But my biggest thing in this game of basketball, and the great ones elevate people. He doesn't have that gene. He's a 6'2" the kid, Carmelo Anthony. He doesn't elevate his people. It's just about him, and that's good basketball on a team that can win 40, 50 games if that. But ultimately, you gotta make people around you.
Does Donovan Mitchell? Does Donovan Mitchell make?
The only reason now when you bring Donovan Mitchell up, see you changing the game.
The reason I bring up Donovan Mitchell, is because they're the same type of player.
He won. No, they're not.
Yeah,
they are. They're smart. Donovan Mitchell won.
Because he had a better team. He had a better team around him. You're going to win when you have a better team.
Donovan Mitchell, and we seen on Tuesday, Donovan Mitchell had 8 assists. He was able to handle the ball and get people the ball when they needed the ball. He got Jay the ball when he needed the ball. I've never seen Colin Sexton do that.
George, when you mentioned, though, when you say that Colin Sexton didn't make people better around him, okay, that's fine. And I can somewhat buy that argument. But then you can say the same thing about Kyrie Irving, too, is when Kyrie was here, he didn't make players here better. The Cavs didn't get better, of course, when he was here, of course, until who came back. And I can even make the argument that LeBron made Kyrie even better than what he was. And then when Kyrie left here and went to Boston, Tatum and Brown, they developed on their own so much to the point that when he left there, they were glad he was gone. There was no tears shed when Kyrie Irving left Boston to go to Brooklyn and, crying. This is not taking anything. Kyrie is a great individual player, but I don't believe, as a matter of fact, I won't even say I don't believe. It's my opinion that Kyrie does not elevate the game of players that are around him. Kyrie cannot be the best player on a championship team. He can only be second best. That's why he hasn't won anything since he left here. Now, maybe Brooklyn might win something this year if they keep their head straight, because they'll have KD.
I doubt it.
Kyrie doesn't.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, just because Garland is a great assist guy and that doesn't mean everybody has to be a great assist guy. Every guard has to be. Damian Lillard isn't a great assist guy. I mean, and you can make a case he's better than Kyrie Irving. I mean,
how to take Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I mean, it's an argument. That's what I'm saying. People Garland makes everybody around him better. Yeah, he's a great assist guy, but he has limitations on his physical ability too that a lot of guys don't have. I mean, that needs to be said. And you put Garland against an elite defender, and you put Kyrie Irving or Colin Sexton against an elite defender. Garland is going to struggle, and he struggled against elite defenders. I mean, and that needs to be said, and it's not being said enough, and that's why I'm personally not as high on Garland. I think he's a 3 and not a 2. But he is a very good ball player. But that's not just because you're not a great passer. That means you don't make you don't make your teammates around you better and stuff like that. That's not necessarily true. You don't have to be a great passer. Be a decent to good passer, and you should be fine if you're an elite scorer.
He's not even that, though. That's what I'm saying. He's not even that.
Well, I disagree with you because he averaged 4.5 assists on the weakest shooting team in the league. On the weakest shooting. So
you are a Cleveland Cavs. I would say this. I can like Colin Sexton.
Mm-hmm.
I can agree with you about some of the things that is going on in the guard. And I agree with you. I think he can get to the hole decently.
No.
He okay. He's not strong enough. That's why they got Donovan Mitchell. We got a guard that can get strong enough and get in the middle of the lane.
You had one. You had one before Donovan Mitchell too.
Donovan Mitchell can do that better than all three guards that we're talking about.
All right, but go ahead.
But as a Cavs fan, you cannot say that we didn't give this young man a chance. We did.
Not with a good team. Not with a good team.
Let me finish my point. He did not evolve to the player we wanted him to evolve to. And here's the diamond in the rough. He got hurt. And okay, you can say this. We got other players. But I would say this. If he passed the eye test, this young man, when he played a long season, and then this young man, when he played a long season, okay, he might have better players. But the eye test was, and a little bit better from the 3-point line. I'm getting this player in a groove. So I just don't see that in
They're two different. They're two different types of players. They're two different types of players. A and B. Like I said, they have both strengths and weaknesses. I think Colin has the bigger and better upside. I think people knock him for his passing, and it's really not that. It's solid to good. It's not great. It's not as good as Garland. But Garland has some. He has, like I said, he has some physical limitations that people don't talk about as much. But I mean, like I said,
I think they both do.
I don't think Colin has physical. I think you outside of John Moran, you'd be hard to press to find somebody a guard that's more athletic than him.
I question how well he finishes because when he was here, he could get in the lane, but a lot of times he didn't finish well. Now, one thing I will say not the defense is just to put this out here as a statement of fact. I think last season, Colin Sexton tearing his meniscus really didn't give us a chance to see exactly how this would have worked out with the two of them there. What would have happened? Because when we look at Sexton, we look at his first, what was last year, his third year in the league? His fourth year. So we look at the first 3 years, his first year, not so good. Second year, a little better. Third year is when they got Garland, I believe it was.
Second year
when they got Garland. And they were rated by all these NBA, the equivalent of Pro Football Focus. I forget what it's called, the NBA. They were rated as the worst backcourt in the league. The two of them.
I didn't see that.
And not the only reason I heard Brian Windhorst mention it. And then last year, the Garland's game took off, obviously made an all-star team. Sexton got injured and only played like 7 or 8 games last season. So we really didn't get a chance. And then, of course, this year the trade was made, so we never really got to see both of them healthy, both of them at the, I won't say height because they still should be evolving as players, but both of them ascending as players. We never got to see them mesh and play together.
But the problem is that we don't talk about is all the things that was going on behind the scenes on why he should take a reduced role. I mean, you got a player who doggone near got 25 and 5, and the best that you can do is say you should be a 6 man. When does that ever happen? A guy coming off a 25 and 5 year with that efficiency, and you tell him, you know what, you should be a 6 man and take considerably less money. That's not gonna happen, Jeff. And plus, if you look at him compared to his peers, his direct peers, like I said, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, $30 million a year. Jamal Murray, $33 million a year. De'Aaron Fox, $33 million a year. Donovan Mitchell, they didn't hesitate to give these guys $30 million a year. And you asking him to take 18?
Well, what hurt him too is him being injured because.
Well, I know about before that,
but because they were going to let him go to restricted free agency. and it would have been curious to see what other teams would have offered him. But because of his injury, he didn't really get offers.
Right.
So
Right, but I'm talking about the year he came off the 25 and 5 year. Okay, he was eligible to get signed to a long-term contract then, and they told him you can. They only offered. It was a really low ball offer. That should have told you that they really don't think highly of him, and that's messed up.
Listen. The basketball experts, let me say this. You gotta agree with them. I'm gonna tell you why. Carmelo was out of the league because he wouldn't take a reduced role. What's going on in LA right now?
I mean, you comparing a guy who has 10 years. I mean,
let me finish.
it's a bad comparison.
No, it's not a bad comparison. You're saying they wouldn't give him his money because I'm sure they're talking. Kobe Altman saying, okay, listen, when you come into this team, I'm gonna need you to do this. I'm sure Colin Sexton said, I'm not this type of player. What happened to those players? What happened to Carmelo Anthony? He was out of the league for 3 years. What's happened in LA? I'm giving this whole situation to LA because it's LA. I'm giving Westbrook probably a month. They're going to get him out of there. Because these players that are these one-trick pony players that all they can do is shoot. Now, I would take Westbrook over him any day because Westbrook's defense is elite. But what I'm saying is when you just have one skill set and you're not LeBron James and you 6'8", it doesn't work like that. Anybody
he has more than one skill set. He has more than one skill set. That's the whole thing. And plus, well, he's a good passer. He's not a bad passer. He's not a great passer, but he's not a bad passer. You don't have to be a great passer to have more than one skill set. He's an elite scorer and a good passer. That's the same thing that Kevin Durant is. I mean, hell, Steph Curry is an elite scorer and a good passer. He's not the same caliber passer as Chris Paul, is he? No. I'm just saying that you keep saying, well, all he does is score. And no, that's not correct. I mean, is Kyrie Irving a great passer? No. I mean, I can go on. Devin Booker. Colin Sexton had more assists in his work in year number 3 at 4.5 than Devin Booker had on a championship level team. So you can't tell me, is Devin Booker just a one-trick pony? No, he's a good passer. He's not a great passer. And all of those people who say, well, he's a one-trick pony, it's not correct. Just because you're not great at one thing, that doesn't mean that you can't be good. You don't have to make greatness be the enemy of good.
Excuse me, let me ask you this, and we got to move on from this, but who's the better defender, in your opinion, between Sexton and Donovan Mitchell?
I would say Mitchell is right now. I would say Colin has the bigger. I say Colin has the big. If you want to tell me Donovan Mitchell is the better player and the better defender, I could go along with that. Only if you submit to me that Colin has the bigger upside. Because if you look at the stats closely, considering that Donovan Mitchell had a very good team, I won't say great team.
Well, he had an elite shot blocker.
Right, an elite shot blocker, and he had the best shooting team in the league those couple of years. If you look at the stats, they're not far apart from each other, okay? And he's 2 years younger, or 2.5 years younger than Donovan Mitchell. So if you want to say Donovan Mitchell is the better player, okay, I might agree with you. I may or may not agree, depending on what day it is. But it's clear to me that Sexton has the way bigger upside. And like I said, if he didn't get injured last year, he would have surpassed Donovan Mitchell.
The reason I bring that up is that one of the criticisms of that Cavs backcourt with Sexton and Garland was that, they basically were very poor defensively, and it put extra pressure on Mobley and also Jared Allen to defend those guys. I think we lost George. George, thanks for calling.
That turned out to be another lie. And the Cavs, by trading for Donovan Mitchell, who's the same size, they were saying what people were saying at the beginning was, we don't like the size of the backcourt. Well, when they got Evan Mobley and Larry Marketing last year, and they were shutting teams down when they were healthy, was the size of the backcourt an issue?
No, because they were one of. I think they were the third or fourth in the league.
Exactly. So when the Cavs said, "Well, we want somebody. We want to bench Colin Sexton because we want to start Karis LeVert because he can see over the defense," Then you lie. Then you go and you trade for a guy who's the exact same size. So you were lying in the first place, Jeff.
Well,
I mean, is that a logical explanation? Were they lying? Were they lying when they said that?
obviously there was something there. There was something that was there. I don't know if it was something personal. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes.
Exactly.
But there was something there that. And then Kobe Altman, correct me if I'm wrong, he did not draft. Was he the GM when they drafted Colin Sexton?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
And there were reports that the front office. This is what I heard. Okay, and at the time, people were saying this. There were reports that the Cavs front office was divided. Some wanted to go along with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Some wanted Michael Porter Jr. But the thing was that Tyronn Lue and Gilbert wanted Colin Sexton.
Now, I would have wanted Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, but I think they didn't draft him because reportedly he said that he didn't want to play here. Right. So they figured that when it was time for him to leave, he would have been gone.
Right.
So you're listening to The Right Side on No Static Radio. We don't bring the static. We showing up bringing the noise. The 7th seed I have is the Bulls. Of course, DeMar DeRozan. And, but the question with him is there going to be a slight regression this year? DeMar DeRozan arguably had a career year last year. And given his age and the wear and tear on him, also with Nikola Vucevic, he's aging as well. The health status of Alex Caruso and Lorenzo Ball right now, can they stay healthy? So the Bulls had a really good year last year. They were number 1 seed for quite some time last season before the Heat took it over from them. So you got those questions marks with the Bulls and the 8th. Then the 7th seed is Toronto. I'm sorry. Now I got Chicago 8. Now Miami, and this is what I want to talk to you, but this is why I got Miami in the play-in. They play great defense. They've got a great leader in Jimmy Butler, one of the toughest guys, hard-nosed guys in the league. But Hiram, I don't like their shooting. I mean, other than Tyler Hero, it just comes and goes. Yeah, they got Max Strus, and they got a collection, Bam Adebayo, but to me, they got exposed in that series against Boston and granted, Tyler Hero wasn't healthy, but their shooting is just very questionable to me.
I like their shooting probably a little bit more than you do with Hero, Strus, and what's his name? The tall guy.
Bam Adebayo?
No, the one that they benched last year. From Michigan. Duncan.
Yeah.
I mean, they're shooting. My problem
Duncan
is
Robinson.
My problem is they really didn't improve their team that much.
No.
And
everybody else in the East has.
Yeah, and that team is probably getting up there a little bit in age, and Pat Riley has said, I'm never going to tank. I'm never, ever, ever going to tank because it gives a bad vibe and, I'm never going to tank. And I got them higher than 8th, but I could see, playing as you have them. That's it. That defense and that coach is going to keep them in it.
Okay. And the 10th seed, I got the Knicks, although the surprise team in the East this year could very well be the Detroit Pistons.
Good team. Good. They're building something. But I'll say this. I do like Jaden Ivey. I think Cade Cunningham will be a good player, not a great player. I said this even when he was out there talking, people typing him up. I think he's going to be, a 17. I think he's just going to be a good ball player. I don't see special with him. They need Victor, to be honest with you. Now, if you put him on there, yeah, I do like Sadiq Bey, too.
Yeah, that's another one. He kills the Cavs every time he plays. So that's where I have the West. Real quick, I guess this is how I got the West. Golden State is the number 1 seed. Obviously, why they, especially with Wiseman being healthy this year, they got the the core of the veterans have
Mhm.
gone through
Mhm.
the so-called wars with Curry, Thompson, Draymond Green, Iguodala, although Iguodala is very long in the tooth.
He's done.
But yeah, but then you can come back with the Jordan Pools, Kuminga, Andre Wiggins, Wiseman. So that team is going to be the number 1 seed in the West. I got Memphis as the number 2 seed in the West, which was where they were last year. Number 3, I've got the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard coming back and Paul George. And then last year at the trade deadline, something that flew under the radar when they made that trade with Portland and got Robert Covington, who I wish the Cavs had. But so I got them 3rd. 4th, I got Dallas with, of course, with Luka. But I think the loss of Jalen Brunson is really going to hurt them this year too.
But they picked up a guy who's a very good ball player too, though.
True.
And Hardaway is back this year.
Yeah,
too.
he's back too. Correct. 5th,
Mm-hmm.
I got New Orleans. Really good team, long team, and even though they may finish 5th or they even better, I got them making a deep run in the playoff. All depends if Zion stays healthy.
Yes.
But the way Brandon Ingram played and the length they have on the wings, because they gave Phoenix all they wanted last year, that team could really make some noise.
I wouldn't want to play them.
No, neither would I. They're going to be a tough out. Then I got them 5th, 6th seed. I got Phoenix. I think Phoenix, the window is starting to shut because, I mean, how much longer can CP3 really go?
I agree.
And you saw it start to diminish last year anyway.
I agree.
So there's 6. I got Minnesota 7th. The pickup of Rudy Gobert, but man, you're talking about giving up a lot. You're talking about the Cavs gave up. Look what Minnesota gave up to get Rudy Gobert. That's the epitome of overpaying. I mean, Rudy Gobert
is a better player than Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, but all 3 number 1 picks for Rudy Gobert. I don't know about that, but
Cavs did the same thing. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they gave players up.
They gave 3 players
and
Ochai Agbaji and 3 number 1s.
And we're going to see with Agbaji. I watched Utah the other night. He didn't get in the game against Denver.
He did not.
And speaking of Denver, so I've got Denver 8th, and I got Utah as a play-in team, number 9, and Portland as number 10. There'll be the 2 play-in teams.
I like your play-in teams. I have Denver higher. I think the Clippers can beat the Warriors.
Plus, I hope you're right. I hate the Warriors.
I don't hate them. But I will say this about the Warriors: they got the veterans and they got a stable of really talented young guys coming right after them. So that window is going to be open a while.
Exactly.
I think Denver is one of the more underrated organizations out there. For them to take the next step, Jamal Murray got to be Jamal Murray. He got to be.
Well, he's got to stay healthy. And Porter's got to stay healthy.
Yes.
I kind of like Houston. They can be a wild card. To me, they're the Detroit of the West.
Yes.
Jalen
Green is the real deal. That's a talented guy there.
And the former Cavs, Kevin Porter Jr.
I've been disappointed with Kevin Porter. I expected more out of Kevin Porter.
Me too.
Jr. I expected more out of Kevin Porter Jr. You remember what people were saying? And this is how I know that there was some dislike of Colin. People don't want to say it. Well, he's a more talented. I never agree with Kevin Porter Jr. was never more talented than Colin Sexton. No.
We don't know that.
I mean, if you watched him play,
he a head case though. He can't get out of his own way to play right.
Case. I agree with he's a head case, and he's a talented guy. But I think people slept on Colin Sexton's talent just a little bit. There was some disrespect toward Colin Sexton, but I do.
Colin got a little crazy in the locker room too, though. His demands and stuff, on an unproven player was unacceptable. I'm talking about Colin. Yeah. We know Kevin Porter was his outside issues came inside, and
he had outside issues when he was.
I don't understand the brothers that get to this level and don't want to let the streets go. I'll never ever get it, whether it be basketball or football or any other sport. But Collins' demands inside the locker room and stuff.
I didn't hear about that.
He had some issues inside the locker room. His demands and stuff. It's like you're an unproven player, buddy. Like you got to bide your time and prove yourself.
You talking about his rookie? You talking about during his rookie year?
No, I'm talking about before he got injured.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear. See, yeah. I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, there's a little bit of strife going on.
Okay. All right. Well, and maybe that explains some of the stuff, but. But back to Houston. They're building. You're exactly right, Jeff. They're building a very good team here.
Yeah, they are. Them in the West and Detroit in the East are teams to keep an eye on.
I agree.
And I think teams that are going to be better than they were last year, but not have as good as record as they did last year, are Toronto in the East and Memphis in the West. Toronto, you got a bunch of guys on that team that are 6'8", 6'9", that can play almost every position, that can ball. Their backcourt,
not enough scoring.
Not enough scoring there. But you talk about teams you don't want to play. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs either. And then plus you still got Siakam and a couple other guys that's left over from the championship team. They got the championship pedigree there too. So I think those two teams, while they may not have as good as record as they did last year, they may be even better than last year. So here's my prediction. I'll give you my prediction for the NBA Finals. Who is going to be Rookie of the Year and possibly Coach of the Year, and then the Cavs record.
Okay.
And then I'd like to hear yours too. So in the Finals, I got Milwaukee and Golden State in the Finals, and I got Milwaukee winning it, not because, and this is not personal feelings, I'm going to put those aside because I don't, that as a Cavs fan, I can never root for the Warriors, but if healthy, I think Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Bobby Portis, Connaughton, by that time Ingles will be back, have enough shooting around Giannis. There's nobody, I don't care, Draymond Green can be all defensive. Draymond Green will not be able to handle Giannis just like he could not handle LeBron when the Cavs were playing them. And so if healthy, I think Milwaukee will have enough to overcome the Warriors in the finals of 7-game series. For Rookie of the Year, Paolo Banchero from Orlando, as you heard in the opening of the show with my remarks about him. Coach of the Year this year, I think it'll be Dwayne Casey there in Detroit. I think he'll be Coach of the Year this year, although it may be the coach there in New Orleans as well. It's going to be, in my opinion, between those two. And then as far as the Cavs this year with their final record this year, this is all based on health. I think they can finish their record to be 48-34 this year.
That's the number. That's the exact number that I have. 48-34. May not make it out of the first round of the playoffs. They may not.
It depends on who they're matched up with and where their seed is.
And I think there's going to be some heavy questions about this offseason and some of the decisions that they made this offseason. I do. I haven't seen enough of the rookies yet, but Banchero is off to a very good start. I do like your New Orleans pick. But my situation for the NBA Finals, I'm going to go with the Clippers, and I will go with the Nets.
And the Clippers were my second pick to come out the West. Okay. Although maybe 2A and 2B, because I still like Memphis. I just don't know if they're ready to make that next step yet. But the Clippers are going to fly under the radar this year. You look for a lot of load management with that team, which I hate load management, but you're going to see a lot of load management with that team, especially with Kawhi and Paul George, because they don't even really care where their positioning is, in my opinion, for the playoffs. They're playing for the playoffs, and they have Ty Lue, who I think is one of the most underrated coaches in the league.
Let me say this about Ty Lue. I didn't respect him that much when he was here. I thought there were some issues. But thinking back at it, he's a better coach than what I initially gave him credit for. However, the reason I didn't like him, I didn't like how he developed young players. I do think he's an excellent coach in terms of mid to veteran teams,
which is what they
which is what they are. That's what led to him getting fired, by the way, here, because he really didn't want to develop these young players.
Well, he's in that sense, which is a mystery to me why this guy is hanging on. In that sense, he's like Popovich.
Yeah.
But then look at San Antonio now. Why is Popovich? I mean, what more do you have to prove?
Just loves it. I think he just loves the sport.
I guess. And then plus his wife died, so you know you just don't know.
He like Belichick.
Yeah, right. There you go. So we'll see. So you have a few more minutes, Hiram. You got to run.
No, I can stay. You want to talk some?
Yeah, let's switch over to the Cleveland Browns. Okay.
Do we have to? Can we talk about it? No, I'm just saying. I'm just going.
Can I do my live reads real quick? You guys add us some time.
We're gonna let's take a short break and we'll come right back. We got a few live reads, some commercials, some music, and we'll be right back at you.
Has violence happened to you or your family? Violence can affect all parts of your life, sometimes in ways you can't see. Violence can affect the way you eat, sleep, and cause you to lose focus, feel angry, afraid, or even use drugs or drinking as a way to escape. But we're here to tell you that violence doesn't have to keep hurting, and you can change your life starting now with help from the Trauma Recovery Center. We want you to take control of your life. Today can be the day. The Trauma Recovery Center offers real help for real needs in real time. They offer services for food, clothes, safety, emotional support, and a whole lot more. So listen, don't let violence control you. You can break free, and TRC can help. Give them a call at 216-644-5487. They will come to you wherever you are. They're free, they're 24/7 and confidential. So look, if you want out and don't know where to start, call the Trauma Recovery Center. The Trauma Recovery Center will help you take back your life after violence starting today. Call today. Get the help you need today. If you call now, they will respond immediately. If you're listening and if you're watching on the screen, 216-644-5487. The Trauma Recovery Center of Northeast Ohio, also affiliated with the Center for Families and Children. And so, every week we have a special segment called Our History 365. And today I would like to introduce to some and reintroduce to others Granville Woods. Born April 23rd, 1856, and left this earth January 30th, 1910, was an American inventor who held more than 50 patents in the U.S. He was the first Afro-American mechanical and electrical engineer after the Civil War. Self-taught, he concentrated most of his work on trams and streetcars. One of his notable projects and inventions was the device he called the synchronous multiplex railway telegraph, a variation of induction telegraph, which he relied on ambient static electricity from existing telegraph lines to send messages between train stations and moving trains. His work was assured a safer and better public transportation system for cities of the United States. Now, I'm urging you guys to please, if you don't pick up a book, go to Google Black Inventors, and get your life, get your knowledge, know your history. I'm going to close out with this because there's so much great things about Granville, but I'm going to tell you some important stuff really quick. Granville Woods invented and patented tunnel construction for electrical railroad systems and was referred to as the Black Edison. Pay attention, guys. Of course, over the course of his lifetime, Granville Woods obtained more than 50 patents for inventions including an automatic brake and egg incubator, and for improvements to other technologies such as safety circuit, telegraph, telephone, and phonograph. In 1854, Woods received his first patent for the steam boiler furnace, and in 1885, Woods patented an apparatus which was a combination of a telephone and a telegraph. The device was called telegraph phoning. Would allow telegraph stations to send a voice and telegraph messages through Morse code over a single wire. You listening? He sold the rights of this device to American Bell Telephone Company. In 1887, he patented the synchronous multiplex railroad telegraph, railway telegraph, which allowed communications between train stations from moving trains by creating a magnetic field around the coil wire under the train. Woods caught smallpox prior to patenting any technology, and Lucius Phelps patented it in 1884. In 1887, Woods used note sketches and working models of the invention to secure the patent. The invention was so successful that Woods began the Woods Electricity Company in Cincinnati, Ohio. Listen, to market and sell his patents. However, the company quickly became devoted to invention creation until it dissolved in 1893. Thomas Edison later filed a claim to the ownership of this patent. Y'all heard that? Stating that he had first created a similar telegraph and that he was entitled to the patent for the device. And Woods often had difficulties in enjoying his success as other inventors had. Are we surprised about that? Made claims to his device. Woods was twice successful in defending himself, proving that there are no other devices upon which he could have depended or relied upon to make this device. As after Thomas Edison's second defeat, he decided to offer Granville Woods a position at the Edison Company, but Woods declined. Granville Thomas Woods, known as the Black Edison, you guys, I urge you. This is another good one that you need to go and look up. Granville Thomas Woods. We salute you. We appreciate you, and more than anything, we recognize the real attributions that you brought forth in our society that we still utilize today. We salute you. And now back to the right side with your host, Jeff Doggett.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Brother Woods. As you said, no, we're not surprised. That happens so much throughout history.
I was shocked over here, Jeff. I was over here having fun. It's so much more to this story. But Jeff, I don't know if Brother Hiram was sitting over here watching me and reading all of this stuff. I was shocked. I'm like, man, it is important that we really get into our history and know our history.
I saw you. I saw your face.
Yeah.
You should look up a guy by the name of Vivian Thomas.
Yeah, I got him too. He's coming up next week too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's coming up next week. But just, if we don't know our history, so that we can tell the truth, that's why we're here. Exactly. We're the voice of the revolution. We're here to talk about our communities, not just everything that goes wrong, but the goodness that comes out of our communities and our people. So, yeah, let that
exactly. And before we get into our next topic, let me just say this too, for all of you that are listening to me to this broadcast, especially those that are in the United States. You may be past the time in your state to register to vote, so hopefully you are already registered. And we're going to do a section on our show. We were going to cover it today, but I'm going to put it off to next week on the importance of this midterm election as it pertains to the Voting Rights Act. There are several races across this country that can flip the Senate to the point where we will no longer need the filibuster in order to pass this vital piece of legislation, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and even possibly the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. So keep that in mind. That's something that we're going to deal with next week and as we approach Election Day. But back to the more mundane and as I call it, the candy store of life, and that is sports. You're listening to the right side on No Static Radio. We don't bring the static, but we sure enough bring the noise. We have in studio with us Hiram Boyd. Hiram, before the break, and before I get into the Browns, let me just say this. Kudos to the Cleveland Guardians. I was disappointed but not upset about their exit this past week from the playoffs. If you think about it, we got a caller. Okay. Welcome to the right side, caller. State your name and where you're calling from.
Hey, this is Big Al in DC.
What's up, Big Al?
Well, we're talking NBA and NFL, and I was just about to give a tribute to the Cleveland Guardians. So that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at NBA and NFL right now.
Guardians have really showed off this year, didn't they?
Yes, they did. I was just saying that though I was disappointed but not upset with their exit from the playoffs on Tuesday, the fact of the matter is that they took the big bad New York Yankees and their almost $200 million payroll and their cadre of all-stars and tradition, history, etc., took them to the fifth game of the American League Division Series, with the fact now that we found out now that the season is over that their best player, Jose Ramirez, was playing with a broken thumb since June. One of their other all-stars, Andres Jimenez, also was playing with a broken hand that he's having surgery on, and that these were two of their best hitters, and yet with that in mind, they still took the Yankees to 5 games, and their future is so bright with their top prospects already major league ready. The fact that 17 rookies made their debut this year on a team that disrespect was discounted, was not even given a ghost of a chance to beat the Yankees in that series, and yet came close to doing so. The future is so very bright for them, to the point where they don't even have some of their best players on the team yet. So you look for some of these young players to come up next year to take spots, not to mention what they already have. So any take you have on any NBA or NFL or Major League Baseball right now, feel free to give your take.
Being from D.C. and watching the Nationals win it all 4 years ago, or was it 5 years now?
It was 3 years ago. They won 2019, so it was 3 years ago.
3 years ago. And then I look at the hatchet job they did with all that talent they had, and look who they're playing for. San Diego's got Soto and
Josh Bell. Josh Bell.
Mm-hmm. And
the Dodgers have Trey Turner. The Dodgers have Trey Turner. The Mets have Max Scherzer. Yeah.
And the Phillies have Max Scherzer.
No, the Mets have Max Scherzer.
No, I'm talking about the guy that's on the Phillies team, Schwarber.
Right, Kyle Schwarber. But the Phillies have former national Bryce Harper.
And number 3, Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
And I look at, if that team was allowed to stay in place instead of the hatchet job fire sale they did, right? They probably would have been something this year supposed to last. But, I understand the nature of the business cycle, right? I just don't get how that Lerner family is thinking right now. And so they've got all the new talent from the LA farm system and everything. But I guess what I'm looking forward to is seeing how this NFL season, we're 6 games into the season now.
Yes.
And, your team always does well. The Brown Dogs.
Well, I would disagree with you there, but go ahead.
Now, is Kyler Murray your quarterback this year?
No, he's with the Cardinals. No, right now we got Jacoby Brissett, but of course that's only because Deshaun Watson is suspended right now. No, Kyler Murray's with the Cardinals. And the Browns play the Commanders this year too, back in December, just so you know.
I expect Deshaun Watson will spark something because it's all quarterback driven right now, right?
Right. Al, have you ever heard that song by Carole King called "It's Too Late, Baby"? That came out in the '70s. When he
played it all the time, and Tapestry. I've heard that thing every track on that song.
Well, when Deshaun Watson comes back, the 11th game of this year, the 12th game of this year, rather, this season, you could play that song for the Cleveland Browns. It's too late, baby. Listen, give me a call next week at the beginning because we're near the end and I want to close this out. But thanks for calling and thanks for listening.
Yep. Okay. The NFL, the NBA, and the MLB all at once.
Right. Yes, sir. But thanks for calling. Yes. So you got the Capitals down there. Okay. All right. So Hiram, the Browns. So here's my take on them, and then curious to hear yours, and we'll take this to the end before we give our hero and zero of the week. So, JJ the third came out this week, and John Johnson the third came out this week and basically called out the team, saying that, you know, you have to do more than just come to practice and play and then go home and watch television, whatever. You got to go home and, you know, continue to study, prepare for the game and all that. And all that's fine. I get it. But my take on that is you need to do the Michael Jackson thing, JJ the third, and look at the man in the mirror. I mean, since you've been here, I can count on one hand and subtract four fingers the number of big plays that you've made since you've been here. My whole reaction to that was, how about yourself? The Browns' defense has been the biggest disappointment of the year. Perhaps maybe we overrated it coming into the season this year based on their performance in the second half of last season, and you can make the argument that they compiled those stats last year against less than stellar quarterbacks for the most part in the second half of last season. And the fact that they're 2-4 right now with the issues on defense, with their issues on the special teams, with the culture, they've got a lot of talent. They got a collection of talented individuals there, but I don't see a lot of team play here, and that's the problem. And I threw this question out earlier today on some of my social media forums. I'm curious to see what the feedback is. And I want to ask you this, Hiram. If Mike Tomlin was the coach of the Cleveland Browns right now, don't change anything else, just bring Mike Tomlin in. That means you still got Joe Woods, you still got Alex Van Pelt as the OC, you still got all the other coaches here. But if Mike Tomlin was the coach of the Cleveland Browns right now, do you think they would be 2-4?
Yes.
Still do.
I should.
Okay.
Mike Tomlin has his own issues, and he's done a lot of things poorly in Pittsburgh. I was out of town at the time, and I was working with a guy who's a Steelers fan. We watched that Buffalo game, and I was teasing him. He's a big Steelers fan. He said he's been a Steelers fan for 45, 50 years. And I was teasing him. I was saying, with the first pick in the NFL draft, 2023 NFL draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that team, I haven't been impressed with Mike Tomlin all that much. Here's the problem. What's the problem? I do like Kevin Stefanski. I do like Andrew Berry. I think they're good at their jobs. I think the problem is, and I said this at the time, you can go check my Twitter, I said at the time.
I know where you're going because you and I have talked about
it. Stefanski fired Steve Wilks, and he knew Steve Wilks was the better coach, the defensive coordinator. It was a close call from what I understood. He felt more allegiance to his boy than winning football games. And that defense, he's not this. Joe Woods is not a good defensive coordinator. Okay. He doesn't. The defenses don't stop the run. They're confused on who would it be, and this is year number 3 in this defense.
So let me ask you this: their confusion in the secondary that led to big plays against Carolina, that led to the debacle against the Jets, that led to the big play against Atlanta, and then last week Zeppi's Pizza or whatever his name is. Came in here, we made a Bailey Zappi, look like Tom Brady last week. So how much of it is Joe Woods? How much is personnel? Because how many times can you have to make the same mistake over and over again? Oh, I thought you had him. Oh, I thought you had him. Well, I thought you had him. How much of that is on the scheme and how much is that on the players?
It's not about, my opinion, you have enough talent on this defense to be way better. I remember Greg Williams, the year they won 0-16, they had nothing on defense. But those boys played like hell. They had nothing. They were giving everybody hell every single week. And they were in games every single week. It's not just talent. It's not scheme. It's your attitude. When you had Greg Williams, he was coming off the run blitzing. I mean, everybody knew where they knew where to be. You ain't gonna run up the middle on us. I'll send all my linebackers up the middle before you run up the middle on us. I mean, I don't see that out of Joe Woods. I mean, what does a Joe Woods defense do? What is it? I mean, he just seems like another guy. Right. I mean, your attitude. The guys were saying how he's demanding, and Greg Williams was demanding of either you gonna play hard and hit somebody and hit them hard. I mean, excuse me for saying it like this. He said, "Look, we come here. We are here to F you up." I don't see that we are here to F you up.
So you don't buy the argument that the reason that they're so poor, especially against the run, is that their defensive tackles are deficient and the linebackers are too light?
No, I don't buy that because we had you. I give you a prime example. You remember Larry Ogunjobi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Olamide.
He was considered a rising star under Greg Williams.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yep.
What has he done since Greg Williams has been gone? He's been a journeyman. He's been terrible. He can't even hold a job. You got to be able to know what talent you have, use it to the best of its ability, and put it in the right spot. And I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that at all.
Well, to your point about Ogunjobi, I guess the only other team in the North he hasn't been on yet is Baltimore.
Right.
He's on Pittsburgh now. When he left here,
yeah,
he was with Cincinnati.
He went to Chicago too.
Yeah, so I don't know, Hiram. I look at this team, and I just wonder, should we start pumping the brakes on calling Andrew Berry a genius as far as talent ranking? Because and again, I'm not going to do revisionist history here. I like the JOK draft pick.
I do too.
I thought he was going to be, and I'm not saying that putting him in this category, but I thought he was going to be a Palomalo type player.
Jack of all trades type.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but
the problem is Andrew Berry's doing his job. Kevin Stefanski is somewhat handcuffed at the quarterback position. You got a defensive coordinator who shouldn't be a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, absolutely. What about special teams?
I mean, special teams, not too bad. That's not I know he missed the field goal, but that's a 54-yard field goal.
The onside kick and the fumbles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you got to fault the player. The player had the ball right through it. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But the problem is that in my opinion, when I look at a team, this is higher. Okay, this is higher. When I look at it, I'm looking at your defense, man.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't stop, you know what? I had somebody in the Browns who covers the Browns. You know what he told me last year? The Browns don't care about run defense, and it shows.
Well, I mean, the quiet part was said out loud basically when they made the draft pick, because they were asked during training camp, well, aren't you concerned about the interior of your line and your linebackers? And there's basically said, well, no, we're not worried about that because teams don't run the ball now anyway.
Right.
And to me, they're still the San Diego. The San Diego Chargers came in here 2 weeks ago. The 31st team in the league. That's last, folks. Well, y'all don't know. They were last in the league rushing. And they dropped a deuce plus 32. They dropped 232 yards on the Browns running the ball. The San Diego Chargers. The Atlanta Falcons. But they were being called the Fail Clowns before that. The Fail Clowns came in and dropped over 200 yards on you. Last week, as I said, and now you're going to play the Ravens tomorrow with Lamar Jackson. Now, J.K. Dobbins isn't playing. He's injured again.
Right, but they got somebody else.
But they got running backs. And this team has too much talent to be 2-4. To your Stefanski point, I will give you this. That he really, Baker in 2020, maybe he overachieved. I'm not going to do revisionist history here then because I was on this same show on another station in 2017. And when that draft was coming out, at the 2018 draft, I said that I didn't want Sam Darnold because he looked like a deer in the headlights against the Buckeyes in the Cotton Bowl. I didn't want him. I didn't even think about Lamar Jackson. Nobody was talking about him. I didn't want Josh Rosen. And I said, although Josh Allen looks like he's big and strong, his accuracy is not that good.
Yes.
And so I said, I was on record, I want the Browns to draft Baker Mayfield. Okay, I was wrong, I admit.
I won't say I'm wrong. You can call me stubborn, you can call, he had probably one of the top rookie seasons there is.
He did, and
second year, it wasn't good, but the whole team just fell apart under Freddie.
Yes.
The third year, and I never forget when they hired Kevin Stefanski, he said this, and this is what irritates me with media folks. Okay, they don't tell you stuff like this. He said this repeatedly. He said, "Let me tell you this about Baker. It's going to take him half the year to learn my system with the footwork and everything. He's going to struggle."
And he did.
He did for about 6 games.
Yeah.
But that Cincinnati game, I think it was week 7.
Right.
He was outstanding
for the rest of the year.
And he was outstanding the first 3 games the following year.
That was last season.
Yeah, last season, until he got injured.
So let me ask you this, because them playing him all of last year, despite the injury he had,
they admit it is a mistake.
Do you think there was another agenda there? Because according to Barry, they started looking at Watson in the 5th week of the season last year.
It was an agenda.
So you put him out there to make him look
bad,
and so that you can pave the way. Yeah. Now, I will get now from a pure quarterback standpoint, I'd rather have Watson anyway.
I would not.
Really?
I would not. I would not.
You'd rather have Baker than Watson.
If you give me both of them in their right situation and everything is on the up and up with learning the same system and everything. See, I looked into I had never looked at until they acquired. I had never looked at Watson's numbers, and I must say, when I looked at him for the first time overall, I was somewhat disappointed. Well,
he did throw for over 4,000 yards with a bad team.
Yeah, he had a bad team. But people don't think about it. He had the same system. He had the same head coach. He played in great weather every single week, 80% of the time for years. He did play against the top-rated defenses in those. I mean, going against Jacksonville and those. I mean, he played in the dome. He was relatively healthy, and he was the central figure of that. He was the offense of that team.
He was. Mm-hmm. So he had D-Hop on that
right,
team.
Right, yeah. I mean, he's a good ball player, but to sit up there and say, he's clearly better, considering, Baker going against the Ravens twice. He's going against the Steelers twice, and improving Cincinnati twice. You playing in Cleveland with that weather and off the lake and all those teams with the weather. You got a lot, and trying to learn 2 and 3 different systems.
Well, I will agree with you regarding the weather.
Yeah,
because we don't know what Watson's going to do because he's never played. Well, I will take that back. He did play in this environment once. Ironically, it was against the Browns.
He did decent.
And,
he was decent.
That was a game that the Browns won 10-7 that year.
Right.
I don't know. I think he is an upgrade.
He's absolutely an upgrade
over what we had.
If you give me Baker at his peak, if you give me week Cincinnati up from week 7 until he got injured, you got an argument. You got you got an argument, right?
What's his excuse now, though?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't watched him, but I will say he's probably trying to learn that system.
He's terrible.
I haven't watched. I haven't watched.
Yeah, he's been bad this year.
Yeah, I heard.
Watson gives you the athleticism and mobility.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
The thing is, this is it, and we'll end here as we're almost at the end of our time.
That's fine.
These next 2 games, Baltimore tomorrow, and Cincinnati next week. I'm of the opinion that if the Browns don't win both of them, the season's over.
I think they're gonna lose both.
Then you're looking at 2-6 going into the bye. So if they're 2-6 going into the bye, do you think they make any changes during the bye week?
It's very possible, but I'm not so sure it would make a big of it. Until you give me a big time, like a big time defensive coordinator,
I agree that they just say your scenario. God forbid your scenario. They do go 2-6, and they're going into the bye week at 2-6. Firing Joe Woods is not going to really drastically change anything for this year, and especially when you come out of the bye, you're going to Buffalo, you're going to Miami, and you got Tampa. Although Tampa may not be what we thought they were coming here, you could very easily be staring at 2-9 when Watson comes back. So we'll close with this.
I'm sorry, real quick. I got a question. Hiram. So you brought up Greg Williams earlier. Do you believe that if Greg Williams is still here, that we have a much better defense?
Absolutely.
I agree. I totally agree. People look at me cross-eyed, but I totally agree.
I would agree with that, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if the Browns are 2-9 when Watson comes back, do you bring him back? I say yes, because if for any other reason, you'd have to get him some reps because he would not have played since January 3rd of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
The insurrection hadn't even taken place the last time he played. So just to show you how I'm just saying, just to show you how long ago that is. So 2-9, worst case scenario, 2-9 after 11 games, do you bring Watson back?
Absolutely.
I agree. So you've been listening to The Right Side on No Static Radio. We don't bring the static, but we sure enough bring the noise. As we do each week, we close with our hero and our zero of the week. We want to thank our guest, Hiram Boyd. Thank you, Hiram, for coming in and talking NBA with us and even talking a little Browns with us. But our hero of the week this week is Marcus Flowers. Now, if you don't know who Marcus Flowers is a candidate in the 14th congressional district in the state of Georgia. And he's running against the QAnon queen, Klan mom, conspiracy theorist, the one who said that the fires in California were caused by Jewish lasers from outer space. And that is none other than Marjorie Taylor Greene, although I don't know how long she's going to keep the green, being as the fact that her and her husband aren't together anymore, but that's another story for another time. In a debate this past week, and this is why he's our hero of the week, Marjorie Taylor Greene tried to paint herself as a victim of the January 6th insurrection. She said, after all, I was there on January 6th. You weren't, and I was in fear of my life. I am a victim of the January 6th event. Well, I wish that I was there at that debate because I would have summed up the old, for those of you that are in the Cleveland area know about this, I would have summed up the old Big Chuck and Little John laugh when she said that. But he called her out. He's our hero of the week because he basically stood up to her and basically called her a liar and exposed all the lies that she told. Now, I don't think he's going to win that election given the makeup of that district. But he is our hero of the week because he had the guts to stand up and do what I wish so many others would do in this age of just lies that we see in debates. And he stood up and basically called her out for the liar that she is. So, Marcus Flowers, you are our hero of the week. Anybody that may be listening to us today in the 14th Congressional District of Georgia, please go out and vote for Marcus Flowers on Election Day. Our zero of the week is none other than Yankees manager Aaron Boone, who I don't know if I should give him the zero of the week or also the crybaby of the week award as well. Why, you ask? Because after Game 2 of the American League Championship Series against the Houston Astros, the Astros play in Minute Maid Stadium, which is a stadium that has a retractable roof dome. And the Astros opened the roof up for Game 2. And Aaron Boone made the comment that the Yankees would have won Game 2 if the roof was closed because he's of the opinion that the ball that Aaron Judge hit in the 8th inning, I believe it was, would have been a 2-run homer had the roof been closed and would have put the Yankees up 4-3 in that game that the Astros wound up winning 3-2. You're our zero and crybaby of the week, Aaron, because it was said, not by me, it was said by the analyst after the game on MLB Network and then in their wrap up of the game, and was proven that that ball that Aaron Judge hit would have been a home run in only one park in the major leagues. And you know what that park is? That park is Yankee Stadium, who has the short right field porch that every other stadium in Major League Baseball, that would have been exactly what it was in Houston, a fly out to right field. So Aaron Boone, you are our zero of the week. You've been listening to The Right Side on No Static Radio. We don't bring the static, but we sure enough bring the noise. Once again, we want to thank our guests, in-studio guests, Hiram Boyd. We want to thank all of you who listened to us today, who called us today and watched us on our various forums, Facebook, YouTube, etc. But right now, I see that my time is up. Thank you very much for your time, and until next Saturday at 3 p.m., shalom.
My reverse stuff got in the way. Picture?
You get bread. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
We know we want to talk sports and politics with you because this was a mayor.
Yeah. Let me get a picture of you.
I'm heading on down. Y'all have a good one now.
We'd like to thank you for tuning in to The Right Side on the station where we don't bring no static, but we sure enough bring the noise on staticradio.net. Make sure you guys check us out on social media where we absolutely love to hear from you on Facebook.com/No Static Radio LLC, on Twitter at No Static _radio, on Instagram at The Real _No Static Radio, and on YouTube at No Static Radio. Also, if you guys would like to listen to replays of this show and others on NoStaticRadio.net, please make sure you check us out on Mixler, Mixcloud.com. Just type in No Static Radio in the toolbar for replays of this show and others. And for continuous streaming, check us out on TuneIn.com, LiveOnlineRadio.net, or MediaQ for continuous streaming of this show and all others on this platform. And for all things No Static Radio, including up-and-coming events, merchandise, and an in-depth look at all our great show hosts here, soon to be under construction. Check out our website at www.nostaticradio.net. Thank you guys so much for watching, so much for listening in, and you know what it is. We've got more music for your listening pleasure here on your voice of the revolution, nostaticradio.net, powered by Google, partner with Colors, and sponsored by Lamont Avenue Wines, the Cleveland Rugby League, and Design Me exclusively. You guys be safe, be well, and have a great weekend, and enjoy the weather. We'll talk to you on Monday with Bubba Wax on sports and everything else. Be safe, be well, and have a great weekend.